So, today's subject is contradiction and coexistence. My nose is a bit runny, but we'll see how it goes. So, this is one of my favorite concepts. I just love it. And I think it's applicable anywhere, everywhere, all at once, whatever. Right. It's fairly simple as an idea, but it's kind of complicated the closer you look at things. Like the further you zoom in on the more you focus on details, I guess, the kind of harder it is to see it working. I haven't really thought too much about it, about focusing on the details, because it gets really complicated, but I'll try to explain what I mean. So let's start by explaining the basic concept, contradiction and coexistence. What does that mean? That even though things, let's say two things, contradict each other, they still coexist. Or rather, they need the contradiction to themselves exist in order for them to exist. A simple physical example would be that they're two different sides of a coin, right? They're opposite, they have different things on them, different writings or whatever, but they cannot exist without another because they're on the same coin. And I think that this basic concept applies to everything. Let's use an example. Let's use hot and cold as an example. Now, I know, and this is what I meant by the details, and it becomes complicated. There are plenty of temperatures, let's say, in between extreme hot and extreme cold, right? There is warm, there is lukewarm, there's kind of hot, whatever. And let's not even get into the specifics using degrees and stuff. For now, let's just assume that only extreme hot and extreme cold exists, for the sake of this argument. So, they obviously are directly contradict each other. You know, extreme hot is the direct opposite to extreme cold. But here is how coexistence comes to play. If the extreme hot did not exist, and as I mentioned earlier, for the sake of the argument, only these two exist. You can either be extremely hot or extremely cold. There is nothing in between. If extremely hot did not exist, would you still be able to say that extreme cold exists? In the way at least it exists right now. And what do I mean by that? If extreme hot didn't exist, and temperature was only extremely cold the whole time, then that would be normal. It wouldn't be extremely cold. The moment the direct opposite stops existing, you cannot differentiate extreme cold. It's nothing different. Like, you don't have something that counteracts it in order for your human brain to understand it. So extreme cold maybe would still be called extreme cold, but it would be normal. And as time passes and humans completely forget about the existence of extreme hot, then extreme cold would eventually start being called normal. Or maybe nobody would even pay attention to it. There's obviously going to be curious humans who try and study it. But the point, you get my point. And this is the most simple way to describe contradiction and coexistence. Even though they're direct opposites, they need each other to exist. Another very simple example is light and dark. If light didn't exist, how would you be able to distinguish, I don't know, let's say differentiate, but not really. How would you be able to make out something that's dark? Like, how would you be able to categorize it? How would you be able to even recognize it? If nothing that counteracts it exists, then it's just normal, then it's just constant. There's no reason to have not a specific word for it, but like it's normal. And that's it. It's constant. That's about it. There's no need to keep pumping out examples. I believe you understand. And if not, you're free to comment me, send messages, whatever. I don't really care. We can have a conversation about it, and you can tell me your thoughts. Now it gets to the tricky part about details. The simplest way to answer this would be that taking the example of extreme hot and extreme cold into account. Now more temperatures exist. The most general way to explain this phenomenon would be that extreme hot counteracts extreme cold. Then let's say it's very hot, there's also very cold. Hot, there's cold. Very warm, there's very, what would be beneath cold? I don't know, chilly. But you get my point. There's always going to be something that counteracts each other. And then you have lukewarm. Neither warm, neither cold. The perfect average. That's where things get tricky. What is the direct opposite of it? And I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but there must be something. Or its very existence is the contradiction itself. If everything is balanced, then maybe lukewarm is the perfect balance. But what contradicts it? I need to think about this more to formulate a theory about it. But I believe there is still something, and my instincts tell me that its own self is the thing that contradicts it. Simply because nothing can be perfect in this world, besides the whole world. You know what I mean? Like, a human, let's look at it directly as a organism. Let's take all the personality bullshit aside, appearance, whatever. As an organism, let's say that our heart isn't perfect. That, I don't know, I'm just saying that the lion's heart is much stronger, much more efficient than a human one, right? Our spleen isn't perfect. Maybe the elephant's one is better. You get my point. But when you look at a human as a whole, it's like a world itself working. And that's what makes it perfect as a whole, but imperfect if you look at it in separate parts. I believe that the perfect balance is something similar to that, but I haven't really thought about it to give more details. But as I said, my instincts point me towards that way of thinking, so that's probably correct. Always trust your instincts, my friends. So yeah, like, humans are amazing as an organism. We're not the strongest, we're not the fastest, but overall we're the most diverse. We have the most potential, and that is why we're the ones ruling this world. Maybe we don't excel maybe we don't excel at one thing over some other animals, but altogether, overall, we are much superior. And obviously, if you just look at it as an organism, that, let's say, overall, I'm not a biology student though, I don't know much, but this is at least the idea that I have gotten over the years, that overall we're much more, on average, superior than other animals. And this is what allowed us to thrive and survive, and then in turn develop intelligence to such an extent. Obviously, we probably had above average intelligence overall than most animals, but I believe that after we secured our position, let's say, in this world, we started developing higher intelligence. Otherwise, having bigger brains and being more intelligent would just use more energy. And using more energy wouldn't be really good when we had to hunt lions and shit. But that's kind of besides the point, really. That's about it about contradiction and coexistence. I believe the thing that remains to explain exactly would be, as I mentioned, the complete average, the complete, I don't know what to call it, the perfect balance between hot and cold, lukewarm. The perfect balance between light and dark, what would that be? I don't know. Haven't really thought about it, and I believe it gets more complicated. There is a simpler example, though. The perfect balance between beautiful and ugly would be average. Most people are average. You know? I don't know if most things are lukewarm, though. But maybe, generally, obviously, this changes depending on what you look at. But maybe the perfect balance is found on a higher, let's say, it's more frequently found in the world. Like, there's more average people than beautiful ones out there. Maybe there's more lukewarm temperatures. Probably not. I'm just thinking, like, there's something special about the perfect balance. And I don't know what it is. Like I said, my instincts point me towards the fact that it's perfect. It's probably much simpler than you think, than I think, I guess. And it's probably that lukewarm, for example, it doesn't have something that directly counteracts it, and you can consider it as the perfect balance between hot and cold. But simply, what counteracts it, I guess, it's simply the fact that it's made out of two things, and it's not just by itself. So it doesn't need something to contradict it, because there's two things that perfectly contradict themselves for that to be created. That's probably the answer. I feel like that's correct. I'd love for you to tell me your opinion about this, so yeah. Peace.